Hey, you guys. Hope you're doing okay. I missed you guys already. But I have this whiteboard at home and I thought I'd make the best of it and thought this would help us to understand decimals. You just watched a video about decimals and to review what we've already learned in class. And as you guys remember, this to kind of show you is we're talking about what happens on the other side of the decimal place. So think about our ones. Think about those like as dollars. And we can divide our dollars into 10 pieces, which would be dimes, or we can divide our dollars into hundredths, which would be pennies. And everything that we deal with the place value is going to be in tens because we have a base 10 system, which makes things pretty easy when we try to find equivalents for tenths and hundredths. So let's look at, today what we're going to do is we're going to look at some fractions and some decimals and to connect those with models and show how this fraction, we can show it as tenths, we can also show it as hundredths. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at this fraction, which is 2/10, and we're going to show it using a model. Now we're going to use this model because this is out of 10 pieces, and this fraction is 2/10 or 2 out of 10 pieces. So the model that goes along with that would be this one. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color in for that to show that fraction, which is 2/10. So I'm going to color in 2 out of the 10 pieces and show 2/10. Now I need to figure out how I can show 2/10 on my hundredths. How do I show that using hundredths? So what I could do is I could color in this model the exact same amount in this model that I did in this model. So let's try that first. So I'm going to color this in. I'm going to color in one row, and I know that that is 10 pieces. Color in the next row, and that's going to be 10 pieces. So 10 plus 10 is 20, which makes 20 hundredths. Now can we figure out what are we doing to go from 2/10 to 20 hundredths? It's just like we did when we were dealing just with fractions. To find an equivalent fraction, we need to multiply the denominator and the numerator by the same amount. So on this one, we multiplied the denominator and the numerator by the same amount. We could also divide it, like when we simplified. But let's just look at this one. When I go from 10 to 100, what am I doing? I'm multiplying my 10 by 10 to get 100. And whatever I do to my denominator, I have to do to my numerator. So I'm multiplying my numerator by the same amount, 10, to get 20 hundredths. What if I was going to write that as a decimal? We've already done this in class, but if I was going to write 2/10 as a decimal, I would write 2/10. 20 hundredths as a decimal, 0.20. And those would also be equivalent to. How about if I just had a decimal and I had to draw that as a model? Now the first we do, just like we did in class, is we're going to write this as a fraction and we're going to say it out loud. That's going to tell us what to write. We're going to say that's 40 hundredths. Think about it in this chart. We would say it's 40 hundredths because that's where we're ending in our place value. So 40 hundredths. Which model are we going to color in? This one, because this has 100 pieces and we're going to color in 40 out of 100 pieces. Now to do this and to color these in, I know that each row is a row of 10. So I can do 10 at a time. I can color this in and say I'm doing 10. And then this row, which would be another 10. This row, which would be another 10. And this row, which would be another 10. And I've colored in 40 hundredths. How could I show 40 hundredths here on my tenths model? What I could do is what I did before, which was color in the exact same amount. So let's color in the exact same amount. We're going to color in the exact same amount. And that tells me that was 4 out of 10 pieces. So, moving this down a little bit so you can see these numbers, 4 tenths is equivalent or equal to 40 hundredths. Guess what? We did exactly like we did up here. To go from 4 tenths to 40 hundredths, we multiplied by 10. But I bet you're saying to yourself, well, we didn't really multiply. We didn't start with the 4 tenths. What did we start with? We started with the 40 hundredths. And then we went to the tenths. Two ways I can show equivalent fractions. I can either multiply the numerator and denominator by the same amount or divide, like when we simplified with fractions. So I can divide that 100 by 10 and divide my 40 by 10 to simplify that to show it in tenths. And just like before, we had our decimal, which is 40 hundredths, and that's going to be equivalent to 4 tenths. And those two are equivalent. Now, you're going to see that on the beginning part of your work that you're going to do, and you're also going to see something that looks like this. So you're going to see a decimal or a fraction, and you're going to have to figure out what are different ways that I can show this decimal. So to do that, the first thing I would suggest is that if it's a decimal, you write it as a fraction. Let's say it out loud. What is that? That's 6 tenths. What's another way that we can show 6 tenths? We just did that. 60 hundredths. What's a way that I could show that as a decimal? 60 hundredths. So these are all 4 equivalent and different ways that we can show the same amount. And on your work, it's going to be much easier because it's just going to give you one of these, and then it's going to give you answer choices, and you're going to have to circle all the ones that are equivalent to the first one. So I hope that helps, and I will post the answers tomorrow for your work that you're going to be doing, and I will talk to you tomorrow.